What's up, guys? Chubbs here, NUGGETRY.com. Happy Saturday. Fucking beautiful day here in Southern California. Typically is. Just got back from a bike ride. Gonna get nice and high before I grub. I've been trying this intermittent fasting lately, where I only eat between noon and 8 p.m. Right now, it is, I'm looking for my phone, I'm recording on my phone. Open up my laptop. It is 11:47. So in 13 minutes, I'm gonna fucking pop these bad boys open. They got no chance. That package has zero chance of surviving the rest of the day today. Cheers. Kind of a weak dab. Got my arm brace on. Crashed on my bike. I don't know if I told this story or not. I'll tell you guys right now before I get into my other story. So I've been riding my BMX bike the same trail over and over and over. And basically there's this one spot where I do a badass U-turn, come flying around this corner and do a U-turn. Actually come down a hill, then do a quick U-turn. And I've always, been practicing going faster and faster on the U-turn. And like someday there's going to be some other biker coming. I'm going to fucking whip around and we're coming the other way. And the other day, a couple months ago, I'm riding at the bottom of the hill. There's this chick parked and she's just sitting there in the shade on her phone. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to come down the hill, fucking whip it around. She's going to fucking be amazed by my riding prowess. Like I'm riding down the hill and just crashed all at the bottom of the hill. I just heard her on the phone. I gotta go. So, yeah, I forget where I was going with this. Fucking A, THC. Oh, my brace. So, yeah, so I wore this for a long ass time, and it healed my shit up. And then, I think it was last night or earlier today, I was fucking getting all hype in my, getting all hyped up in bed watching fucking Peaky Blinders season 5. Cheering and fucking fist pumping and shit. I don't know if you guys watch the show. It's a badass show. The new season just started on Netflix. And I fucking tweaked my wrist again. So that's why I had that thing on. But I feel like it for some reason, my wrist, dabbing is it's a wrist, there's a lot of wrist action in dabbing. So I feel like that that brace keeps me from being able to take a proper dab. Might be me. I might have just choked on my dab. But either way, I'm taking another dab. So, one of the questions, hold on. This fucking nail is ugly. I gotta roast the shit out of it. Someone asked, Kira, Beardsmith, Bridesmark, something like that. I forget the second half of her YouTube username. When I made a comment in my last video about how I'm not gonna have any more jobs in my life because I've had too many in the past, it made me miserable, so I'm done working for other people. She commented and asked, or said I should make a video talking about some of the bad jobs that I've had in the past. I think that's a great idea. I've only had a handful of actual jobs where, I got a check. I was employed by someone else and got a check. Some of them I fucking loved. Some of them I fucking hated. I mean, when I say hated, I mean, I had a job. Hold on, I got 10 seconds left on that. I had a job one time that I hated so much that it made my body physically, like, I had a physical reaction when I walked into this building that I'll explain here in a second after this dab. Like, that's how fucking miserable I was. Cheers. For first job I ever had, like the first time I ever made money, the first time I ever made a profit was selling weed. I was 13 years old. My friend Chris, who lived in the condominium complex next to me in Fullerton, he was a year or two younger than me. I was 13 years old at the time. He was 12, I was 13. He was a good skateboarder. He was a great skateboarder, but he was really short. He looked a lot younger for his age than he was. And keep in mind, we were already really fucking young. And right next door to Chris moved in this dude named Hans, this Jamaican head. And by Jamaican, I mean like dread to the bone. Fucking just long ass dread, like thick ass patois fucking, yeah man. Jamaican as Jamaican gets. He had some white, hot fucking smoke show blonde girlfriend, American girlfriend. Chris came over to the pad, my friend Tim's pad, where we all hung out. Tim's mom was cool, let us get stoned and shit. He came over one time with this new weed. You know, like we only had a couple connects at the time, so we could tell anytime someone broke out weed, we knew where it came from. You know, that came from fucking Balti, or that came from fucking Tim, or that came from fucking, what the fuck was his name? Duke. So when Chris rolled up, he had some fucking fire that we had never seen before. We're like, where the fuck did you get this? And he told us he got it from this new dude, Hans, that moved in next to him. So we're like, cool. So we all pitch in, immediately put our money together, have him go back, get another sack. He comes back, all good. And I don't remember if it was the next day or if it was the next week. I mean, this was a long time ago. This was 1986. So it's you know, it's been a minute. But at some point, Hans cut Chris off and told Chris that he would only sell to me. And I had never even bought weed from him before. Chris had just taken me over. He didn't want to go by himself because he didn't want to ride over there. It was like a 10 to 15 minute bike ride from where we partied to where we had to go get weed. And he just didn't want to ride by himself. So I just went with him just to go with him. And because I was so much taller than Chris, Hans thought I was older than him, or I don't know what he thought or what his girlfriend thought, but for whatever reason, they were cool selling me weed, but they weren't cool selling Chris weed. So I would go buy weed. People would come to Tim's house. Tim had, my friend Tim, he was in my grade, one of the first people I met when I moved from Whittier to Fullerton. He had two older sisters. One was like 3 or 4 years older, one is 5 or 6 years older. And they were fucking punk rock to the bone. Like fucking punk rock. And, you know, so they always had older friends around all the time. And once they found out I had this weed connect, they would have, you know, they would just give me money and I would go get weed. And I wasn't charging anybody anything. I was getting ounces for $60 and it was fucking dank. And I would just come back and just give it to them, boom. And hopefully they would get me high. Most of the time they did, sometimes they didn't. And I remember one time Tim's sister Sherry had this boyfriend named Roy. And Roy used to roll around on a fucking Vespa scooter when they first fucking became popular in the 80s. Not even a Vespa, it was called a Riva. Honda Riva scooter. And full on mullet, like fucking short, parted in the middle, short blonde hair in the front, feathered, and then just way long in the back, like super long, just a fucking Hessian, total fucking metalhead. And he gave me $60 one time, and I came back and I gave him the ounce, and he was just shocked at how good the weed was and how much I was giving him. And he just broke it down for me right there. He's like, dude, you don't have to do it. Like, you can make money on this. Like, you could take a pinch. Like, he told me straight up, I would have been cool with half of what you brought me back for $60. And that was just a fucking light bulb moment. So that was my first job. And then I was just, you know, from there, as soon as I, you know, started slanging, I met more people that wanted to buy weed. I met other people that wanted to sell weed. And from that point in 86 until, you know, whenever, I've never stopped selling weed to some degree. I've always been selling weed, whether it's just a little bit, you know, maybe have a couple ounces in the fridge, way back in the day to take care of the homies, all the way up to having a fucking, you know, whatever, you know, shops full of fucking weed. So those, you know, that was my first job, you know, great job I'll always have and always love. The first actual paycheck I had when I was 16, I got my license. The day after I turned 16, I got my driver's license. And within probably a week, I had a job. Like I was hungry to go out, get money and everything. So I got a job at a pizza place called Barrow's Pizza in Brea, right across the street from the Brea Mall. It's not there anymore. The one in Diamond Bar is still there, same family. And it was crazy. When I got that job, it was a fucking blast. This place was a party. People were doing all kinds of fucking craziness. It was 1989. And this place was fucking nuts. The managers were fucking cool. It was like some Fast Times at Ridgemont High shit. And then one day, there was the general manager, and then there was the shift managers under him. The general manager was this dude, Al, Italian dude, thick-ass mustache. He had a perm, real big buff. I thought he was a cool dude. He was dating one of his underlings, this chick, Gina. And next thing you know, there's, some sort of sexual assault claim, blah, blah, blah. He's gone, Gina's gone. And they bring in this other cat, Carlos, from the Diamond Bar store to run the store that I'm working at. He doesn't know anybody, anything. All he knows is how to make pizza and how to do it really well, how to run a good shop. And he, for whatever reason, named me because he didn't know what the fuck. He didn't know who was who. And I'm a good talker, so he made me the assistant manager. And next thing you know, I had keys for I'm 16 years old and I got keys for a pizza place, and we were doing a couple grand a night, which, that was a lot of money that I was responsible for. And I fucking loved it. It was so much fun. Had that job for a while. At the same time, after that, I had 2 jobs that were kind of decent. When there used to be a video game store called Captron. I think it was called Captron, and it was just a Nintendo store. This is back when Nintendo was dominating the console scene. And in the Brea Mall, there was a store called Captron, and all they sold was Nintendo shit. And this was before the Nintendo 64 came out. This was when it was, way back. Because I worked at the store when we got the N64 and that first batch of games that was just fucking epic, just changed everything. I was working, so I left Barrows and I got a job at Captron in the mall and at the pet store, Brea Pets. One was I don't know if it was up, no, they're both downstairs on opposite ends of the mall. And again, some Fast Times at Ridgemont High shit, man. I would just walk around the mall. There was an arcade, there was a fucking movie theater. Miller's Outpost and fucking all like Chess King and fucking all this old school shit. Like, there was an ice skating rink that had these big glass walls. So the people that paid to ice skate would enter on one side, and the people that were in the food court for the mall were on the other. And there was a door that you could go in. There was like a balcony where you could watch people skate. And we used to go in there and tell girls to come over and talk to us and just do all kinds of dumb shit, just working at the mall. And then something happened at the pet store. Next thing you know, the dogs got sick. And we had, this was not proud. At the time, I'm an animal lover. And this is, I wanted to work around animals, and the only way I could do it when I was 16 is I got a job at a pet store. And it was an ugly pet. At first it was good, and then it just turned ugly. And all the dogs got sick. They didn't die, but they were shitting all over the place. And it smelled so bad that the other stores in the mall started complaining about the stench coming out of the pet store. And we used to have to get there at like fucking... So the mall would open at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, something like that. We'd get there at like 5:30, 6 o'clock and do everything we could to try and deodorize and clean and help the dogs. It was... I didn't even want to think about that. That job sucked. So I quit that one real quick. Kept working at the video game store. Still selling weed the whole time. I've had a lot of fucking... Now that I'm thinking back... I worked for my dad. One time when I was a kid, when I was like 14, I got caught smoking weed, and one of my punishments was I had to spend the entire summer working with my dad on the job site. He owned an electrical engineering company, and he had this big job where we were wiring up this huge fucking autoclave, giant, like 20 feet tall, 80 feet long, a whole crew couldn't have taken, it would have taken a whole crew like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do this. Yet my dad's like, no, me and my son will do it ourselves. And we did it. It took the whole fucking summer to wire up the panels and the inside. That fucking sucked. Just knowing that my friends were out fucking just flexing, and I was just, it was so hot and dirty and dusty. And when I say dusty, I mean, we were in a fucking, like a machine shop. So there was like metal dust, like, just cancer everywhere, I bet. And no one gives a shit in 1987. That job sucked. And then, so fast forward, meet Mrs. Chubbs, just kind of bum around in Newport for a while, selling weed. And then I got a job. I don't know how I got this bug in my ass to get a job at a finance company. I knew I could sell. I knew I had, I had a job. I don't know if I ever told this story. Even you old school heads don't even know this. I worked for a while as a telephone psychic Remember Miss Cleo, like fucking the black lady on TV talking about the psychic PRN, the Psychic Readers Network? So when you would call, like, you know, pay $8.99 or $7.99 a minute, dial that fucking 1-900 number, I would fucking answer on the other end. Dude, I'm getting embarrassed just even thinking about that. I did that for a minute, and I did that so well. That's when I knew I had phone chops, like phone sales chops. Like it was insane. I've had a lot of telemarketing jobs, and then I got in after my wife and I got married, or I don't even know if we were married yet. No, we weren't married yet. I got a job at a finance company, selling money, doing lease financing, and no training, no college experience, no nothing. I just bullshitted my way. I remember in the interview, the dude who offered me the job, I actually talked him out of the highest paying job that he was going to offer me because I knew I had no fucking right. No, I had no. He shouldn't have been offering me this job, and I told him, I'm like, bro, that's a little crazy. And he's like, are you sure? Like he was tripping on me. I was like declining. It was like 95 grand. This was what year was it? Shit, I don't know. It was the 90s. It was the early 90s, and it was like a 90 to 95 grand a year job, full benefits and everything, and I was just like, nah. And the job I actually took was a fucking commission only job, and I fucking crushed. I crushed on the phone, dominated, killed everybody, generating leads. I was supposed to just generate leads and give them to the account executives for them to close. And I remember one time I had dude on the phone, and there was no account executive to give them to, and I ended up closing the deal. It was like a 650, between 650. There 650,000 over 3 years. I forget what it was. It was a fucking giant paint booth, and I fucking crushed. I just crushed it. And the company that I worked for, they had a dude who left and started. He did so well at his job that as a salesman, he left and started his own company. And I went and I heard that company was buck wild. Like people were doing awesome. They were making a ton of money, and they loved to party over there. Like the company I worked for currently was a bank. And this bank had a little bit, had like fiduciary responsibilities that this other smaller company didn't have. This was more of like a Jordan Belfort kind of chop shop, but legal, totally legal. So I go there, and sure enough, they're crushing. This place is making a ton of money, and everybody's off the hook partying. And I just saw a huge opportunity to jump in and make money. Yeah, on the leasing side, like actually do my job, make phone calls and cold calls and close deals. But I just had so many connections to different kinds of party favors, and these guys love to fucking party. We would get paid twice a month, on the 1st and on the 15th. On the 1st, you would get your hourly wage, like your regular check, and on the 15th, everybody would get their commission check. And we were crushing, like millions and millions of dollars were being made, and fucking A, man, I was selling everybody everything, and it was getting kind of obscene, and it got to the point where I was neglecting the actual sales part of my job, like the job part of it, which I couldn't do. Like I couldn't just be there partying and dealing and doing whatever. And people started asking me, when are you going to start? When are your numbers going to look better? This and that. When we hired you, you came from the other company, you had this portfolio, and blah 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 blah. And I talked the talk, but I just didn't want to be on the phone. I was just over it. I was over the leasing business. And I heard that, so I'm at my second leasing company at the time, still growing, still, just doing my own thing, but kind of in this quasi business party world. And I heard that there was a dude who came into this company from the first company I was at, kind of made the transition that I did, and he made even more money and started a third company. So I went and talked to him and told him that I had come from the first two companies that he worked at. And he said, normally I wouldn't hire anybody that has, that comes from in the industry. I like to train people, not hire them. He's like, but your path interests me. I'm very curious to see how you work based on you're coming kind of the same way I did. And I'm assuming that it's going to be off the chain, partying even more. And so he hires me, and I get a job at this company, and it's fucking Square Central. Nobody parties. Everybody gets in early, everybody stays late, and I fucking hated it. I hated it. I was miserable. This was the company where I had like a physical fucking reaction. So I would go to work. You were supposed to, and one of the issues they had, one of the issues, you know, where we butted heads is we were supposed to wear a suit and tie, or not a suit, but a shirt and tie. And I just wasn't feeling that. I would not wear a tie. And I always wore my hat, which I've done forever. And I had long hair at the time and shit, but I would still crush on the phone. And it got to the point where I was doing good at my job. I was hitting the numbers and everything, but I was so unhappy with where I had put myself that my body would just shake and I would get all sweaty, like my armpits would get drenched. Yeah, you know, this is a nice air-conditioned office. I'd be sitting there in my, just in my office, or in the common area, or in the kitchen, or in the break room. I was just miserable everywhere, and I was just sweating, like physically sweating, and I was just, fuck this. And then I remember I harvested a big ass crop while I was working there. Got super fucking baked one day. I was out in the parking lot doing nitrous balloons in the parking lot, getting high, and the president of the company saw me, and he's like, we need to talk. And it was fucking one of the funniest conversations I've ever had. I wish I would have recorded it. The president and the vice president of this huge finance company here in Irvine, they're like, what's going on? Like, you know, we've noticed a bit of a change in you. And I told them, I was like, you know what? I fucking pulled a big ass crop and I'm fucking stoned all the time. Something to that effect. I was like, I'm smoking more weed than I did when you first hired me. And I remember the president of the company, his face turned, I thought he was getting so mad because his face turned red. I thought he was like angry, beet red, and he was embarrassed. Turned out he's like, and he looks at me, he's like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation right now. He was so embarrassed. He's like, what? And he got super inquisitive about marijuana, asked me a few questions, I answered it, and then he flipped the fucking script on me and just went total psycho and became a dick. Just really, I was under the microscope after that, and I ended up quitting like probably less than a week later. Got married and bailed to Jamaica right after that. I haven't thought about that in a while. So yeah, that job kind of sucked. This video is already almost coming up on 25 minutes long, so I'm going to cut it off right here. I hope that answers the question about my worst job. I threw a little extra in there for you guys. If you have any questions, any comments, any complaints about this video or anything else you've seen in my other videos, use the comment section below. I'm Chubbs, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.